Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 3, Episode 7 of His Dark Materials, the penultimate episode. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, now that Lyra and Will have freed the souls of the dead from the land of the dead, from Metatron's prison, now it is simply a situation of now we need to be prepared because Metatron's coming with everything that he's got. And now the war is upon them, but they need to make sure that Lyra and Will get to their demons, because if they don't, it's kind of the end-all be-all. So I even love the situation, and it's something that Azrael even admitted to himself. It's like, right, I've spent so much, believing in truth, and he just thought like prophecies are just something people made. Now it's like, right, now he has no choice but to believe prophecy, now believing that his daughter is the one. And even talking to Marissa later on, saying that he believed his destiny was to change the world, and now it is a situation, ironically enough, I guess it is ironic that the daughter he never gave anything to, that he gave nothing to, is the one who can save them all. That it's not his destiny, but their daughters. That it would come down to this. And it is a sad situation that for Azrael, it's like, right, I have never given anything to her. I think that's the first time he's ever really admitted it. That's why I even said, I won't say last episode, when he was like, my daughter. Like, I don't think he's ever really referred to Lyra as that, because she was always just kind of, I guess, once again, it's still that thing of, you want to believe that maybe he did everything he did because he thought, right, I need to put my feelings aside because this is for something greater. Because once again, he wanted to believe like everyone could be extraordinary, until he never saw how extraordinary his own daughter was. He was never willing to, because I guess you could make the argument he was so caught up in believing himself to be something extraordinary, and wasn't ever, once again, like him and Marissa being on like opposite parallels of each other in that regard. But Xenophenia, the angel on their side, I'm probably butchering her name every time I'm saying it. But she tells Marissa what's going to come, and it's like what she's going to have to do, that her love for her daughter is her greatest strength, but it could also be her greatest downside. But she has a very unique ability like no one else, in that she can cut off herself. She can bury herself deep like no one else can. Because it's like, yeah, Azrael won't win this because he can't. He's not willing to face his darkness himself, and she's like, yeah, I guess we are doomed, but it's like kind of implying like Marissa already knows what she needs to do, because Azrael's plan is to drag Metatron down to the abyss below, where everything disappears, where it kind of returns to nothingness, and this perpetual, I guess, void and darkness is where everything kind of gets sucked into, and have the device activated to pull him down there. And in the turn, you can hear like Azrael's willing to sacrifice himself, in the grand scheme of things. And the way things were kind of setting up, you're like, it sounds like Marissa's willing to do the same. So I thought was interesting too that with Lyra and Will, and which I think is kind of a neat parallel in itself to Azrael and Marissa, is that Will's like, okay, like you can go on ahead. You said you want to go see that paradise. I'll go get Pan and my demon. But she's like, no, we'll go together. She's like, after everything we've been through, you don't realize like whatever we do together. We go together. So they end up returning to the world where Azrael's camp is, which they're prepared for war, knowing like, hey, no matter what happens, some of us will die, but we won't allow this fake authority to be the one that dictates, like, if we obey him, we get to go into heaven, and if we don't, we go to hell. Like, my daughter has proven, like, she's broken the prison that he's made for us. So even if we die, we will die free. Our souls will be set free. So this is a fight, obviously, worth dying for. No matter, even if we aren't all here to see it on the other end, even in death, we will find our freedom. So, and it is this, I don't know, I love how it's beautifully representative. Like, yes, the kingdom of heaven is upon them, and then Azrael's there in his intention craft, and lo and behold, like, there's all those little dots. At first, almost like, are those about to be like lasers fired? But it's like, no, those are the angels popping up. And then the witches are by his side. And then there are also the other angels that are on their side. And then Gunwi and leads his men to go help find Lyra and Will and take them to their demons. Which you also have Seraphina keeping an eye on that. And it's just like, it's a beautiful, just kind of like it, like from the outside perspective, when you see all the lights clash, you're like, man, from a certain perspective, it looks beautiful, but at the same time, you're like, it's also depressing to think about what that means, because that's a lot of fighting and a lot of death in the sky to look like that, you know. So luckily, Seraphina finds Pan and Will's demon, which we don't know Will's demon's name yet. It is a cat, which I think feels very, because when in season 1, didn't we see him interact with a cat? I don't think that was his demon, but for his demon to take on that particular form, I think it's so fascinating, because maybe Will's always had because it came up at least one, no. Well, I think so. Maybe in season 1 and in season 2, he was in City Gaza, and like the girls there were like attacking a cat, and he protected the cat, and I'm like, oh, is that supposed to be? I think maybe that was a wink and a nod the entire time that his demon took on the form of a cat. Like, he had an affinity for felines. So part of me thought that was interesting, and because I distinctly remember that now. Like, yeah, he's had at least like 2 interactions with cats in a very interesting way. So now for his demon to kind of be in the form of a cat is just fascinating. I also do like that we see some prior threats from the previous seasons kind of like rear their ugly heads. Like, a Gunwi and his men are helping protect Lyra and Will from, God, what was it? God, I was just thinking about their names earlier. Oh my God, they're the thing that attacked the blimp in season 1. I was thinking their names earlier and I just can't remember it now. Oh God, but definitely the Spectres, which I thought was interesting. And still not fully understanding how Marissa does what she does. I mean, I get like she's able to bury herself in a way because the specters feed off of people's souls, they're demons. So I guess because she's able to kind of bury what is her so deep that she can draw the specters to her, because I don't know whether it's almost they see a little bit of themselves in her, like, oh, you're kind of a nothingness that we are attracted to or able to draw in, but then she kind of, I don't know whether she kind of forces the specters to kill themselves in that regard, like how she was able to like destroy them. But it is impressive. Like, no one has had control over the specters. And I do love that coming full circle like that. Her gaining control of them in season 2 and now using that kind of for good rather than kind of evil like she used it in season 2. But then Metatron, because I think he was so impressed with her, it's like, hey, come on through. Like, you've kind of called to me, and now I find you so fascinating. And she looks to her demon and tells him to kind of stay, and I'm like, he's going to be the one to flip the switch while she's there, you know? And I think it's beautiful, especially considering like her and her demon made up last episode. It's like, but what the demon represents is all the feelings she's denied for so long once again. And now it's like those feelings are going to be the ones to stay behind to protect Lyra, to stop all of this. Obviously, Azrael goes in, to challenge Metatron himself, but it's like, yeah, because he is not, it's just like what was brought up before. He's not willing. He has someone who hasn't faced his own darkness. His darkness was thrown back at him. It's just like, right, your own resentment towards your daughter. And he was like, yes. He's like, is that what you are so afraid of? Because it's like, the fact is that you've kind of held some resentment against your daughter the entire time, like maybe thinking that she would hold you back in some shape or form. And once again, now it's a situation of now that said daughter that you've ignored for so long, that you've always kept on the back burner, is the one taking the destiny that you believed for yourself. And when confronted with himself, he couldn't win, While Marissa is convincing Metatron, it's like, no, like, I'll serve you. But she's like, no, he's like, no, you're selfish. You always, we find out so much about, like, right, he was human at one point in time. It's like, yes, he did have desires and power and wants. But like, it does seem humans can become angels, but it doesn't happen that often. He's like, the last time a human became an angel was like millennia ago. So he's offering to make Marissa one because of who she is, because of how unique she is. And he finds her so fascinating. And I think it's like, right, if you were, it's probably like a thing of, oh, I want you by my side as an angel, serving alongside me with you by my side, like, you know. Because he talks about how, like, right, it's interesting how so many men kind of falter to what you want. Like, how many, you were able to kind of wrap so many people around your finger, whether it's Azrael, whether it was Father McPhail. But in the end, he talks about, like, the feeling she has, the shame, the regret that she has for Lyra. And she speaks from this, I think maybe there was some truth to it where it's just like she loves her daughter, but she also hates that she loves her, because it's like, right, I am weak when it comes to Lyra. She is my weakness because I become so needy and I want her, and it's just like those motherly instincts kick in, those instincts, those feelings that she buried for so long, they all kind of like they bubble to the surface whenever Lyra's involved now. And you know, they're both isolated from each other, and you know, Metatron is Enoch, as you know, Azrael was calling him, because it's like that's who you were before you became an angel, and it's like all that to, you know, pull them away, and kind of like, ooh, I want to. He's, you know, he has those very like gloaty traits, and Marissa's very good at manipulating people who are so full of themselves, and you get no one probably more so full of themselves than Metatron. Like, yeah, do you want to? It's like, oh look, I've broken him, because you know, Azrael's like, right, I love her, and she would never betray me, but it's like, yeah, that's what Marissa's very good at, is betraying people, and it's like, right, Marissa's like, I want to see his face when it's all said and done, and so they ended up near each other, and Azrael thinking like, oh, she's betrayed him at the very end, but I don't know whether it's like he's really believing that, or he knows what she's planning. But in the end, her demon flips the switch and brings down the kingdom of heaven, and in that moment, Azrael and Marissa grab Metatron and drag him down for their daughter's sake. It's like, this is all for her. The world that the children will live in, our children will live in, being able to be free. That death will be kind of a new opportunity, a new way of kind of finding life afterwards, you know? That it to be an actual afterlife rather than just some prison that Metatron made. And even more poetic, that Azrael's demon appears and ends up being able to be the final push. And in that moment, because Lyra has seen her mom's demon running over, and her mom's demon looking at to her, reaching out to her, and disappearing, and Lyra knowing exactly what that meant, you know? She, like, the last time she talked to her mom was when she asked her mom to let her go, you know? And she hasn't spoken to her father since season 1, which, like, it makes it even sadder in that regard to know, like, right, like, you would hope they had one final, like, actual, like, moment together again, but no. And and just to see, like, you know, that realization happening as her mom's demon's fading away and she's crying, you know? It's like, her and her mom just never had that opportunity to, yeah, like, there was that little bit in season 1, but even then that was under such falsehood and pretenses. She didn't know that was her mom at the time. And it's just like every other instance of her meeting her mom, it wasn't in the best light. But once again, she knew her mom was capable of being good. It's just like a lot of the bad ended up outweighing it. And in this moment, her mom sacrificed herself. Her father sacrificed himself. Because even Gunwi was like, your father's proud of me. She's like, no, he's not. He's never been proud. It's like, well, yeah, he stood in front of all his soldiers and said how proud of you are. And she's like, I don't know why he would do that. Because they both have regrets about how they handled this situation. But they do realize how special you are. And they loved you to the very end. And they made mistakes, and they wish they could do things differently. But there's a part of me that's, you know, depending on how the series finale plays out, which I think it's so interesting where shows do this, where like the series finale isn't like where you kind of put everything into it. Sometimes that ends up being the case, but sometimes it's so fascinating when it feels more like a series finale. It's more of an epilogue than anything else. It's like, yeah, let's like, because it feels like this was the penultimate episode, and it's like, it's this like action, like, the war is this episode. It's not like it was saved for the finale, and the finale was like a little bit longer. It's like, no, like it's all taken care of in this episode, and the entire next episode, the series finale, will be an epilogue, which I think that's so interesting when shows are kind of designed like that. And even if it's a situation of like the first 10 minutes is something, and then the rest of like the next, I don't know, 30 or so minutes, it's just pure epilogue. So I always think that's so interesting when a series finale is designed like that. You know, maybe I was about to say, like, I don't know if the books kind of flow and feel exactly like that or not. Maybe because, I mean, it's like, obviously for a TV show, they were able to distinctly kind of make you like feel that by having the penultimate, and obviously the penultimate containing all that it has, and whatever the finale contains, like to kind of feel that element, you know? So I think that's just kind of interestingly designed in that regard. But yeah, the war is over, the city of heaven is fell, but there was also that large cube that Will and Lyra found, and they cut it open, and there was someone inside kind of like very like withered and dilapidated, and then they fade away, and I'm assuming that's the actual authority that like Metatron like had hidden away this entire time. Like, it could basically taken the throne from I guess maybe he had convinced other angels to join his side in that regard. To do that, like, how'd you manage that? I mean, that's how I kind of read that situation. So was that them finally being free to go back to where they were supposed to be in the actual position of the authority? Because it was such, I mean, because for Lyra and Will, it doesn't mean anything to them. It's just kind of like, oh, there was someone in here, let's set them free, and let's go to Pan and your demons. So Gunwy's reunited with his children, and I think you see that look on Seraphina's face where it's just kind of obviously like a sad reminder about her son being gone, I think, you know. But the fight is won, but it's still like, once again, it is that bittersweet ending, but there is a part of me like, well, with life and death being what it is now, there is a part of you that's like, you hope that when it is all said and done, that Lyra and eventually Lyra and Will both be Will's got to go back to his mom, but maybe someday Lyra will be reunited with her mom and dad, and whatever life kind of exists in the aftermath now that they're all kind of free from Metatron's control. But like I'd also brought up, what was brought up last episode by, I'm curious to see what ends up happening. Well, because the whole point was like, right, Will needs to go back home and not be separated from his demon. He needs to be with his mom, and I'm assuming Lyra's going to obviously stay in her world. Once again, will keep the knife, and will he kind of pop in from time to time? Maybe we'll get some of those answers in this series finale, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see ultimately how this series comes to an end. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.